Interested in learning the guitar, but you don't have one, so you're in the market for buying your first guitar. So you started to do some research and you realize there are literally thousands of types of guitars out there. Which one do I get for myself or for my loved one who is starting guitar? Well, I'm Kevin from KF Music Studio, and here are my 4 tips for what you should think about when buying your first entry-level guitar. The first thing you need to figure out is, am I going to get an acoustic guitar or an electric guitar? Now, this is going to be a very personal choice based on the genre of music that your student wants to play, or that you want to play, or that your kid wants to play. You've got to figure out, am I going to be playing some more rock and jazz and blues, or do I want to do more singer-songwriting, maybe worship leading into that? So when you think about getting either an acoustic or an electric, that's the first decision. The reality is that good quality brands, you're going to be in about the same amount of money. So really your first guitar is just a preference. Now I can tell you, having played guitar for 20 years, your first guitar, once you get that first one, you're going to keep buying more. It's kind of the guitar player's curse. But to start out with, you want to sort of figure out what genre you want to play and get your guitar that's going to suit your needs. So you have to decide, am I going to get an acoustic or an electric? And the second thing you have to really decide is, what's your budget? Now, there's a big misnomer when it comes to beginning guitar players. I've seen it as a band director with beginning instruments, that we tend to not put a lot of money into it. We think the cheapest is the best. And what I've seen is there are a lot of good quality entry-level instruments, but there's also a lot of instruments that maybe are cheaper that are going to hold you back, or they may not stay in tune. They may not be made with the best quality materials so that it's going to stand up to what you're trying to do with it, and it will actually hold you back. So decide your budget. Now, I think a good budget for a beginning guitar is between $150 and $300. Now, the good news is that when it comes to guitars, if you take care of it, it's gonna hold its value to a certain point. I mean, you may buy a guitar for $199. You may be able to sell it back after a year for 120 or 100. So good quality instruments are always on the market, and there's always a market for them. So don't feel like, man, if I spend $300, what if I get this for my kid and they try it for a month or two and they don't really like it? The good news is, if you invest in a good quality entry-level guitar, you have a market that you can always resell it. Now, the reality is that for full disclosure, the first acoustic I ever bought and the first electric I ever bought, I have both since resold those. So I had them, used them for a while, and I've sold them. So it's okay to sell an entry-level instrument to upgrade into that intermediate instrument, but you want to decide your budget. And like I said, $150 to about $300 is about where you want to be. All right. Now, some of you out there might say, well, but I can get this Gibson Les Paul, $1,200. Like, if I start them out with a great instrument, that's they're going to have more success that way if I do that. And if you have that money and that's your budget, awesome. Do that. Get a Gibson Les Paul. I will never tell you not to get a Gibson Les Paul. But at the same time, for most people, when you're getting that first instrument, you need something that's a little bit budget friendly, but also it's just going to be a good quality instrument that's going to hold up to your first few months learning the instrument. So we decided on an acoustic or electric. We know our budget. Now we got to talk brands. All right. This is where I cannot emphasize this enough. Stick with a brand that you know. A good Squier made by Fender. Fender makes great acoustic guitars that are in the $150, $200 range. Ibanez is a great company. A little bit more than that, like Alvarez is a great acoustic guitar company. A great website to go to, actually, is sweetwater.com. I love Sweetwater. They're my friends over there. I love everything about their company, based in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And they have a lot of great brands on their website, and they have great customer support. So you can call them up and say, hey, I'm looking for an acoustic guitar around $200. What do you recommend? They would be glad to help you out. And I'm not sponsored by Sweetwater, but I should be, because I love Sweetwater. They're one of my favorite companies. All right. So Stick to a known brand. When it comes to electrics, like Epiphone, they make a great like $200 electric guitar. They also make great acoustic guitars, Epiphones. So stick with a known brand, because what happens is if you buy a brand that you don't know, and there are literally hundreds of them, a lot of time they're mass produced and they won't hold up the way you want them to. So I'm not going to list any of those brands here, but you know I always say your first instrument, your first guitar is a lot like your first car. Like if you see a car on the side of the road for $100, you would have some red flags and say, what's wrong with that car? But at the same time, we'll buy an acoustic guitar for $70 and a new one for $70 and say, oh, it's fine. But really, we want to spend a little bit more because, again, you don't want your first entry-level guitar to hold you back. And the last thing is, you want to consider the extra supplies that you need versus the extra supplies that you don't need. So this is specifically for electric guitars. Now, I used to work at a music shop, and so I would see people buy their first electric guitars, and they would come in and they'd say, okay, I want to get this guitar, and I need to get the amp that goes with it. I need to get the bag. I need to get cables, capo. I need to get all these effects pedals. And yes, you do want those things. But at the same time, I think that learning the instrument, just in the purest sense, you can do a lot of great work with just the electric guitar and a simple basic amp. Now, you can add effects down the line as they're playing and they get a little bit more into it. It's okay to throw in a distortion pedal. It's okay to throw in a couple of those things. But most of the time, we don't really need that stuff at first. Now, you do want to upgrade. You do want good quality effects and good quality stuff, but don't feel like you have to get that stuff right at the beginning, all right? Because the reality is, if you're a parent, you know this, that you may not want to spend all that money unless you're really sure that the student's going to take to it and they're into it. Because if they take to it, and if your student or you, if you play it for a month, you're going to know immediately, okay, I'm into this. I know what I need to get. And that's when you can start to do those upgrades. And I have a bonus tip for you. Don't feel like you have to buy new for everything. The reselling market, the used market, is phenomenal for a lot of different brands. So, for example, about 5 years ago, I had the opportunity through, I believe it was Facebook Marketplace, to purchase an Epiphone Plus Top Pro 2, which is about an $800 guitar. Somebody was selling it for about $200 with the case. Now, it was used, of course, but when I went to look at it, all the electronics were fine. I needed a basic setup, some new strings and all that, which is very easy to do. But I really got some amazing value because I went used. So sometimes you can get a really good Fender Strat or, some of the higher end, like a entry-level Martins as well. Sometimes if you are patient and are okay with used, you can get a good quality used instrument for less money than what something new. And it's okay to have a used instrument. All right. So those are my 4 tips for buying guitars. Which one do you like the best? Leave a comment below, leave a like. And if this video has been helpful for you all at all, thank you so much for watching. Would you go over to kfmusicstudio.com, kfmusicstudio.com. If you're learning guitar for the first time, I have a free gift for you, the 9 building blocks to music theory. It will help jumpstart your guitar playing today. Love you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.